1935, the Lions win the NFL championship. The Detroit Tigers take the World Series. The Red Wings bring home Lord Stanley's Cup. Joe Louis begins his rise to world domination. This transforms the Motor City into Detroit, City of Champions.
All right, we are teeing it up. That is.
I think that was a golf ball.
Yeah, that was the ding of the golf ball.
That wasn't a baseball bat hitting a ball.
No, I don't know if you're on. Are you on?
Sounds like it.
All right, get right up on that bad boy.
Can you hear me? Audio tech. There we go.
There we go. Yeah.
Cool.
This is one of the best rehearsals we've had so far.
Is it a rehearsal or are we live?
No, we are live.
Oh, okay. Jeez, thanks a lot.
Yeah, no, I'm just teasing that. We get started and then I start adjusting things.
Yeah.
That's always.
We're busy men, man. We love getting here and doing it, with setting up, and we're too excited to do like some kind of a warm up or anything.
Well,
we're gonna jump right into it, both feet first.
Pour cocktails. Plenty of time to pour cocktails.
Plenty of time. Sure.
And then we'll get to the whole, does the audio work question later.
Those are incidental issues. We'll figure that out.
That's an aside. As long as we got a nice cocktail. So pretty excited though, and that's the thing. I always excited to do the podcast, and there's always exciting things happening in and around the podcast. Yeah. We stream live on Facebook, we stream live on YouTube, and then the videos are there saved for posterity for people to go back and watch them. And we've been creating playlists in YouTube for like the Red Wings. So all the stuff related to the Red Wings are in one playlist, and all the Tigers are in one playlist. Joe Lewis's stuff is in a playlist. But you guys, we've been working with our friend Chris.
Yeah, Christopher Borma, who's been a longtime friend of the project, and he's been doing a phenomenal work on the thumbnail.
The two of you have been making some sexy thumbnails.
Yeah, well, he was the one that suggested it at the very beginning.
Yeah,
and we've been just working together to get some really cool, little thumbnails. It's the little extra, it's extra work to do them, but
so making the socials
worth it. I think it
look
cool.
handsome, and that's just a way of us saying thank you for listening. So we try to make it as presentable as we can. We're not always as presentable as we should be, but we try to make the podcast as presentable as it can be, because you never know who's going to happen across it. So, but thank you for liking and subscribing, leaving a comment, doing all those podcast things in all the podcast places. Thank you. But people find the show and then leave us messages, and it's astounding.
Yeah.
We just got a great message this week from the daughter of the gentleman who owned Miss America 9. Yeah,
I know. That's such a cool message.
I forwarded you the.
I read it. It was awesome.
It was a Facebook post.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. No, a YouTube comment. So she had found it. She said someone in her family, her husband, found it and turned her on to it. And then she was complimenting us. She's like, "There's so many things I didn't know about the boats and the other Miss Americas." And she said she thanked us so much, and then sent us an open invitation to come and broadcast from the bow of the Miss America 9 if we ever find ourselves near her.
Yeah, so, I would love to do that. That would be so cool.
We could absolutely very well.
That's kind of a dream. I mean, we've already done a show at the Miss America 10. We did do a show at the Miss America 9. That'd be that's a functional boat.
It was Holly.
Awesome.
Holly said that her husband stumbled across the podcast, shared it with me. My father was Chris Mistley. Chris just passed away in the last year and a half.
We talked about it.
We did talk about it. And he's the one who salvaged the Miss America 9 and rebuilt it. And there was
made it an actual functional boat where you can drive around in it.
Yeah,
that's like the coolest thing in the world.
And it's on. We reposted on Facebook. There's a news article. There was a news feature.
There was a video of them. They were cruising around.
Yeah. There was a news feature on it showing the video of the boat running. And she's
but it's kind of like stuff like that. It's and I love the fact that they commented in, but it's one of the things I think that the show is kind of important, but important about is bringing attention to these incredibly important like pieces of memorabilia, and maybe memorabilia isn't the right word for the boat, but like legendary craft, legendary. I mean, this is an iconic, legendary, and incredibly rare. And the fact that it's still functional after 80 years.
Oh, it's gorgeous too.
Yeah. That's what I mean. But what it does is by bringing attention to people, to a wider audience that maybe never even heard of the Miss Americas or anything like this. what it does is it makes other people treasure it as well.
Right.
And the more people that care about something,
Mm-hmm.
the more something of an incredible historical significance like that boat, or like many of the other things we talked about on the show, the more they have a chance to survive and continue to be seen by other generations, future generations, because they're relevant. They stay relevant as their story is told.
And that's what we're trying to do is
exactly
preserve
that's
some of
one
this
of the
history
many things that I think that it's important for the books, for the shows, for what we're all this different stuff. For doing a movie, like bringing this stuff out in a movie.
Yeah.
Imagine this thing is seen on a Netflix miniseries. It's like one of the biggest, I call it the first sports epic film ever made.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine this is shown, in the movie,
right.
And this is, and it's shown in its context of how, how important this is. And then, the fact that the boat's still there,
right,
which is incredible to you and I, incredible that everybody knows about this. But to the wider world and goes, oh my God, that boat is still running. Like that is like, it would just be such a, I think such a big deal. And then of course it would be incredibly special to a far larger, region of people, so yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. So like it was a thrill to see that match.
That was the last
really
story.
Appreciate you writing in.
Holly, thank you. Yes,
Holly, that was that was really cool.
That
to
was
see.
and that when it touches the family, because her dad Charles put so much blood, sweat, and tears into preserving that boat.
Yeah,
just being an aquatic fanatic himself. So that was the last big story that we did was Garwood. In the Miss Americas, but we've moved on and we're moving into the part 2.
The Hague, Walter Hagen.
The Hague. Yeah. It's just funny every time you say that.
Yeah.
It's the Hague. We're moving into talking about Walter Hagen.
And here's another component of the City of Champions season, which is, again, like this, one of the reasons why the season itself is so important to be retold. And, I was talking to somebody today and somebody was telling me about how history sometimes isn't a big deal to people from other, and I'm just, and the thing about it is it's like, if you're not interested in history, then go be about your business or whatever. But, there's a lot of stories that are out there you can't remember everything. There's a million stories. There's some stories that about some random topic that you just don't care about. But if you're a sports fan of Detroit, or if you're, I think a sports fan at large, even
right.
This story is, this is the foundation of Detroit sports. This is the beginning of it. This is when Detroit went from being a second-class baseball town that had never won a World Series into being a incredibly, a relevant part of a competitive part of the America's national sporting scene,
right? With
multiple teams, with now all of a sudden with a mantle full of credentials and trophies in every sport that one could talk to, influence in every sport that you can think of.
Yep.
And they say like this is the foundation of sports, as of the idea of Detroit sports. And so that's what I'm saying. And so these people that were part of this story, the impacts that they would eventually have on, there's the whole season, of course, and giving Detroit this huge identity.
Sure.
But within the boundary of each of these different sports, they had profound impact on that sport in Michigan, in Detroit. And Walter Hagen stands peerless in his influence on golf in Detroit, in Michigan. Right. And Detroit is a golf spot. The Oakland Hills. When I was a kid, I held my father at the U.S. Open. There's a U.S. Open golf. There's a major golf tournament here. Right. Not every city has the U.S. Open, gets to host the U.S. Open. It has major tournaments like that in their, within their midst. It takes effort. It takes people to establish a groundwork and to establish to put Detroit on the map, to make it a desirable destination to do that. A lot of times you just kind of take a ring and go, oh yeah, that's a cool event that's coming to the city. But unless your city is on the map and is a competitive factor in the national sporting scene, you're irrelevant. You're not going to get those big things. You're not going to get the revenue that comes with it. Then when people come, you're not going to get the prestige. You're not going to get the young kids that grow up in the shadow of these, of these kind of events, and then get inspired and become golfers themselves and go out and become world beaters themselves. There's so much that these things bring in, and Walter Hagen, like I say, this is Walter Hagen is is peerless, in his impact on golf, on Detroit as part of the golfing scene in Detroit.
So last time we were together, we talked a little bit about the history of golf, how things were founded, and then
I like to say a history of golf because there's so many. Golf is so ancient, and there's so many different varieties. That's why I said history, not the.
Not the
yeah, what we were talking about.
Some of the history of golf. We skimmed a little bit here and there.
Golf is ancient,
and but then getting into Hagen, the Walter Hagen story.
Yeah,
he has a book. The by the Hague himself, Walter Hagen's
that's
story.
The book we're going to be citing most. And I actually brought the book today rather than my own book because I did quote from this book in mine, but I wanted to go a little bit deeper into Walter Hagen, and so I actually brought his book in with a couple passages to read.
All right, so the
book I brought in doesn't have the cover because the cover is like literally like shards of paper. It
was falling apart.
Oh
last
my
week.
God, it's like leaving a trail of little micro dots of brown paper. I'm like, no, I don't want it to fall apart. So I left the jacket at home and I brought just the book itself, man.
All right.
But so
what are we talking about, Walter, today?
So
what are we finding out his early days?
Yeah, last week we were talking about the origin of golf and how it kind of faded into Hagen himself. And this week we're talking about the early years of Walter Hagen, like sort of where he got his influences from, and just kind of who he was, and growing up.
How early did he get involved in golf?
That's what's going to be interesting. So born in 1892, Walter Hagen. And so in 1901, so Walter Hagen's born in 1892, and he lives basically across the street from he's born in Rochester, New York.
Are you going to make me do math?
No, I'll tell you.
Okay.
I'll get 8 years old.
Okay.
I got it all written down. We're not trying to do math here.
Is my impression
I don't
there
like to do math here either. That's why I got it written down. That's why I took exact notes.
It was my impression there would be no math. All right, anyway, we're
good with math.
We're in New York. Go ahead.
I do math all day too. I'm not trying to do it on the show. I'm good. I'm not bringing my calculator out during the show, man. I leave that at home. Walter Hagen is born and raised in Rochester, New York, and pretty much everything we're going to be talking about here takes place in Rochester, New York. And so he grows up across the street from the Country Club of Rochester, and it's like sort of across the street, and then he can go up on this hill next to his house and see down into this golf course. And he can see all these golfers playing golf.
Well, and what do kids have to do to entertain themselves? In 1901, it's either you play kick the rock.
Well, they had baseball and they had some other stuff too.
Well, I mean, but they didn't have.
Yeah, but what I'm saying though is that golf was his influence primarily because of its locale. It's right there in front of him, and he could go up on this hill as a little kid and Mommy, what are they doing down there? And they're whacking balls and stuff. It's got this beautiful country club style building. And so he's watching, that was sort of his early influence. And so his first job is as a caddy for the country club. I mean, it's right. I mean, what else is he going to do? He's going to caddy he's born into a family. His dad is a blacksmith and did work on, early automobiles. So they're sort of like a middle-class family that they're not like, they're not poor or anything like this, but about kind of like a middle-class family. Anyways, he gets a job at a country club, and he says in his book that his wages were 10 cents an hour plus a 5-cent tip. So he said that he would caddy every day and then play baseball on Sundays, according to his book.
All right.
So, and he also says in his book that although he was a caddy, he loved baseball more. And what he would do it's kind of interesting. He would take as a caddy, they would find like lost golf balls, which were in far less mass production then than they are today. So sort of more value to a found golf ball in those days. And so he'd find golf balls, and then there's a couple things he could do with it. It was basically like extra bonus money because he could sell it to the sporting goods shop.
Sure.
But another thing that he could do is he would take that golf ball and then he would match up with the other caddies, and they would have a putting tournament to see who would take all like 10 found golf balls. So he'd do some gambling, and he would say
like pitching pennies. It's
exactly
putting golf balls.
Yeah, and so he would take those, and he would, whenever he would win the putting tournament, he would take those balls to the sporting goods shop and buy like a new baseball mitt or a new baseball bat. He was using all of his money for for equipment in that. And it reminds me, like a lot of the stuff we're gonna be talking about here in this, his caddy experiences, it reminds me of my own experience because I used to work up on Mackinac Island.
Oh, okay.
And it reminds me because like it was I was in the luggage department. I was you call it a bellhop, but I was I was a dock porter / bellman. So the luggage, we would bring the luggage in from the boats coming up to Mackinac Island, and we were responsible for getting it to the rooms, and then from the rooms back out to the boats. And there was like 15 guys, we're all like in our young 20s, working the docks, taking luggage up to people's rooms. And it was so reminiscent, because there's so many the book is really a great read. But there's so many recollections by him of his caddying days. I had to just do a series of notes, but it's just interesting because a lot of the stuff, like for instance, the idea where he was putting to like win money, we used to do that pitching quarters. There'd be a bunch of people at the docks where we'd be pitching quarters, and you'd take everybody else's quarter, or you'd take dollars from people and that. And so it was stuff like that was, really reminiscent for me. I'm like, that's so awesome, because I had a similar sort of experience up on Mackinac Island, because it was like a sort of a caddy type of a caddy shack, So anyways, so that was one of the first things that kind of like, kind of made me appreciate that, where he's doing that. So anyway, so this is what he's doing. So he's caddying, he finds himself learning. He doesn't ever talk about the fact that he was like particularly in love with golf. It was a job he was doing. He started playing more golf because it allowed him to learn more about what he was doing. So when he was caddying, I mean, he starts caddying in 1901 at the age of 8 years old. Jeez. And so between 1901 and 1905, by the time he's 12 years old, he's just learning how to play golf just because he wants to be he's trying to be the best at his job, which is to know about golf and, help people carry their bags and, kind of be humorous with them about their game and stuff. And so he's got to learn to play golf, but he's not allowed to play at the course. He's a kid, and he's a caddy. And again, this is an elite sort of club. You got to be rich. You got to have some money to be in this part of this thing. And so he makes his own golf course there's a nearby cow pasture.
Okay.
And he makes his own little golf course on this cow pasture. And that's another thing. It reminds me of when I was younger, because we did a couple things like that. We made our own little golf course nearby, and we also made our own football field back in this dead end area. We mowed this huge 50-yard square, and then built wood goalposts and stuff. We used to play football there for years. We had our own football field. Yeah,
it's like sandlot golf.
Yeah, so I could kind of see, again, there's some sort of, there's some things I kind of connected with some of this stuff with his childhood and this, and so it kind of takes up to what is 12 years old in 1905. I got a cool little story that kind of talks about sort of what kind of happened at 12 years old.
Oh, yeah, what happened at 12?
So, all right. So late in this again from his book, the Walter Hagen story by the Hagen himself. So late in the spring, when I was 12 years old, I was in the 7th grade and sitting looking out the window, feeling the nice warm air and sunshine on my face. I could see the golfers out on the course at the Country Club of Rochester. Suddenly, I couldn't take it any longer. When Mrs. Cullen, the teacher, wasn't looking, I jumped out the window. I never went back to school regularly again. Throughout that summer, I spent every weekday caddying, and on Sundays I played baseball. I was a good caddy, conscientious about my job, and soon members of the Thistle Club asked me to caddy for them. This was a big step up for me. The Thistle Club, composed of charter members of the club, which had preceded the Country Club of Rochester, was a sort of inner group whose word carried a lot of weight. I picked up a lot of pointers in the game and played around in my own cow pasture course when I had the free time. That fall, when golfing was over, I decided to learn a trade to support myself until I was ready for the big leagues, meaning he wanted to play pro baseball. It seemed natural that anything I had learned to do would involve skill with my hands. Harry's Garage in Rochester was taking apprentices in car repairing for a fee of $27 a month. In order to make the payments, I got a part-time job with Foster Armstrong Piano Company as a wood finisher. I also went to school 3 nights a week, taking a course supplementary to the car repair work. As a sideline, I had enrolled at the correspondence course in taxidermy. A little later, with the piano company job as a background experience, I landed a job as a paid apprentice to a mandolin maker. These 2 jobs gave me a good basic knowledge of woods and woodworking, as well as appreciation of fine grains and finishing. When I became a professional golfer, my clubs were always bright and polished. As a fellow pro once remarked, you can shave in Hagen's clubs. Wow. I continued to caddy at the Country Club of Rochester through the summer, and the Thistle Club members fixed it so I could play the club course. By the time I was 15, Andrew Christie, the club pro, needed an assistant, and it had to be me. So that's him. That's, you know, he's his kid's motivated.
Yeah.
He's got, you know, he's learning how to play golf. He's he just gets promoted to be the assistant pro at this golf course, and he's, you know, 12 years old, for, you know, maybe, what did he say, 14 years old, right in that area. I think because he worked his way up, so it's like 14, because I got the next sort of block is 15 years old, and we're not there yet.
Yeah.
So between 12 and 15 years, 15 years old, he's the club pro at this course, and so he's like apprenticing, and he's getting all kinds of credentials under his belt, you know, to be able to do stuff. And so so anyways, yeah. So this is who he is. He's learned, you know, he's learning how to make, you know, to woodwork, which is going to be huge, because he's going to end up making his own clubs. Like, this is what he's going to be doing.
Yeah, I love that when you said mandolin. I'm like, where are we going with the mandolin?
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah. So anyways, so the notes I sort of have here to kind of zip through. So while he's at this club, he's making these connections, and he talks a ton in this book. There's a ton, like, I have to literally just summarize it into the idea that there's all these are some of the like richest, most influential people in this area. And he's like caddying for them and charming them and being friends with them and making connections. And so he's making all these, he even said in his book, these people he said, throughout my entire life, these people would like help push me in these different directions in my careers and that. So he's making a ton of like, you know, super important connections. And one of the things that these people love to do is like sort of not all, but many, you know, people with excess amounts of cash to do is gamble on everything. He said they would gamble on everything. And one of the things that they wanted, that they gambled on, and they put that Hagen captained a group of 5 caddies in a contest against a rival Oak Hill Country Club, and they won. So his group won, and so these rich guys bought them a trophy for their victory over Oak Hill. And Hagen says that was the first and only amateur trophy he ever won.
Oh, okay.
Because after that he's going to start actually making some money, like doing what he's doing as an actual club pro. So he points to he just points to that not only just the influences on these people on his career. He's got a ton of stories like this in there, but one of the big influences he talks about is how he would see these guys. And he said these guys were always super well dressed. You know, they were always talking about big, like, multi-million-dollar deals. They're talking about traveling the world. Oh, last week we went out to Africa for a business deal, and we met with the Maharaja or something. You know, like whatever. He's
mind-boggling.
Yeah,
for
him that he's like never. It's kind of like it's inspiring him. Like he wants to do those things. He wants to hobnob with kings and queens like these guys are doing. So this is an incredibly formative point in his life. I mean, he spends a ton of time, like I say, talking about this. And so by 1911, the club pro Andrew Christie is teaching him all about, like, he's learning everything about golf clubs. Like, he's learning everything about them. At this time, the heads of these clubs were made in England and Scotland, but the shafts for the clubs were all made by Hagen and Andrew Christie.
Okay.
And so again, he's using his woodworking to build the shafts for these clubs. And so not only are they selling them at this event, but they're selling, like, they're selling them at other events. Like, they're making golf clubs. They're getting the box of the heads in from England and Scotland, turning them into clubs and selling them.
Yeah.
It's like what they're doing. So, a little interesting note that he talks about is the set that he made. He made himself a set, and the set that he carried through 2 American Open golf championships, all the way through 1920. He made for himself when he was a caddy. Like, it's the same set that he was using when he was a caddy, back in the early days. And he's got this unbelievable story. It's a really great story about him at some point in his future when he was going in the Hall of Fame, and the Hall of Fame, the Golfing Hall of Fame came asking him for, hey, do you have one of your original clubs that we can get?
Oh, okay.
And so he was like, I can do better than that. He gave him the whole set.
Oh, wow.
He gave him the whole set, but he was missing his favorite club. And so he asked his assistant, he's like, you know where my mashie is? That was like my favorite club. And the assistant was like, oh, I know where it is. I'll bring it to you. And so he was doing a tournament at Oakland Hills, and and the assistant came up to him and was like, I found your mashie.
Yeah.
And he said he gripped this mashie. You know, he's kind of an old man by this point. And he's like, it was like looking at like a lost friend, you know, and he's like, I used that mashie for that little tournament or whatever. And he was like, it was like a lost friend that he was like reunited with. And so he had it. And so there's another club called the Calamity Jane, which was Bobby Jones. We're going to be talking about future episode. That club and that Hagen's mashie are together in I think it's the New York Country Club or something. He's got it in the book. It's one country club or another, but it's like the Hall of Fame, I think, said this club is too cool to like have as part of this set. You know, we'll take the set for the Hall of Fame, but that mashie we want to put with Bobby Jones's Calamity, which was a famous club of Bobby Jones, called the Calamity Jane. And so the two of them are like together in this club. Yeah. So it's just kind of funny that he's like reunited with this club, and he's just got this book is just full of stories like that. You can't even, you know, it's almost tough to outline because he's so many reminiscences all over the place. But yeah, so these people, so he goes off, he has this tournament with this rival club, they win. And then, and so in the meantime, so he's like, while he's doing all this is 1911, he is, what is it? 19. So he's about 18 years old, and Andrew Christie, so Hagen at this point, he's been playing baseball this entire time, as I mentioned, and he's getting really good.
Oh,
and so so at this point, he's pitching for a semi-pro team called the Rochester Ramblers. So Rochester, New York, the Rochester Ramblers, and he's pitching for them and getting $1.50 a game, which is, you know, not the greatest money in the world, but again, he started at 10 cents an hour at plus 5 cent tips, so $1.50, you know, it's, you know, not bad. So, and then that team that he pitched for won their city championship 3 times. Okay. So they're competitive, and we're going to find out even how, you know, that he's competitive here, you know, in probably next episode, like how competitive he was, because baseball was his sport. And so at one point, this is 1912 now, and at 1912 there is there's a big golf tournament called the National Open, and it's being held in Buffalo, New York. And so Hagen is going to travel with Andrew Christie of the pro, you know, the club pro for Rochester, and he's also going to travel with the rival club, that Oak Hill club. That club pro is going with them too, and his name is Alf Campbell. So there's 3 of these guys, Hagen, Christie, and Alf Campbell are going. So they go to this tournament, the National Open in Buffalo, New York. Okay. And so in their practice round, like the 2 of those guys were going to play in it, and then Hagen was just going to be just kind of there to hang out with them in that. And so he goes to this tournament with them, and they play a practice game before that, and Hagen beats both of them. Right. And so immediately after that, they send him home to watch. He's got to take care of his clubhouse, right? And so Hagen even says in the book, he goes, they sent me. He goes, it's obvious why they sent me home, because they don't want their assistant to beat, you know, the one guy. I'm his assistant. He doesn't want to get showed up by me, and the other guy is his friend, and he doesn't want to get shown. You know, they know that I could beat them, and they don't want to see it. You know, they're like, if I win the tournament and those 2 guys finish in the middle of the pack, they're going to look terrible, especially to their own members and stuff. So he's under no illusion of why they sent him home. But at the same time, he does talk about how there was sort of a wink and a nod to the idea that, like, if you like don't make us look bad and just go home and watch the pro shop while we're gone and let us have our little our tournament without you, then we'll set it up so that you get to go to the Canadian Open in Toronto. And so you can go there. We'll get a slot for you there. We'll get somebody's going to house you there. We'll set you up. So just, you know, be cool with us, you know? So that's kind of, he's understanding that fact too. He's like, that's great. I kind of know how to play the game. You know, he's like, you know, he kind of nods to that idea that this was the reality, you know, that he's like, you know, so anyways, it's just kind of interesting when you read between the lines of that particular story. So So anyway, so he does go to the Canadian Open, which was just a short time after that. And so he goes to this tournament in Toronto, and he finishes 11th in the tournament. So not fantastic. And he acknowledges that. He's like, it wasn't necessarily the best game I ever played, but it was his first tournament that he was ever in, his first, professional tournament. And he said the one redeeming component of the tournament was that he finished up one slot ahead of a guy who had formerly won this tournament.
Okay.
So he was like, well, I played better than he did, which is a consolation prize. And so in 1912, this sort of later on in this year, Hagen Andrew Christie would leave the Rochester club, and Hagen would become the top, club pro at this club.
Okay. Well.
And so so I actually have a little bit of a story, which is, to partner with that, a little quote that he talks about, which is definitely worth reading.
Yeah. So he's a young man making some moves. He's still a pretty young guy. Well, how old is he right now?
At this point, he's 18. Yeah, 18 years old.
18. All right.
Yeah. So this is sort of like the little finale. I thought it was a pretty good sort of quote to read about it. All right. So, all right. So in this is actually him saying it. So in 1912, I became pro, and I asked George Christ, my former fellow caddy and baseball pal, to be my assistant. I gave my dad a job as greenskeeper too. Here I was, 19 years old, a real pro with an assistant, a salary of approximately $1,200 for 8 months of the year, and a chance to make extra cash by giving lessons at $2 an hour. I also collected a fee of $1.50 a month per set for keeping 200 sets of clubs clean during the season. Also, through the winter, we'd make clubs in the pro shop for sale during the summer. I really felt important. I'd come a long way from that job as a caddy in 1900 at 10 cents an hour. I was big and strong, almost 6 feet tall and around 175 pounds of weight, and plenty healthy. I didn't smoke, and I'd never taken a drink. In fact, I'd never smoked a cigarette or took a drink until after I was 26 years old and left Rochester. I was a pro with a good job. Members of the club liked to play with me and treated me as a friend, but I still did not feel that I could walk in the front door of the clubhouse to hoist a post-round glass or to enjoy a steak dinner. Rochester, like all other places where the game was popular, considered the pro, the paid golfer, as someone outside the social sphere. I had broken that rule once with the help of a member, Mr. Harry Strong. I was about 9 at the time and had caddied many rounds of golf for him. He reached the finals in a tournament and was in a playoff with Mr. J.C. Powers. He hired me again, but for an unusual job. He took another caddy along with him when he teed off and sent me inside the clubhouse to Herman, the bartender. I was to meet the two players at the second hole with a shaker of cocktails. That first shaker, the two shared equally. I scurried back to Herman for a refill. At the fourth green, I hid flat on my tummy in a nearby ditch waiting for them to arrive. This time, after their green shots and putts, Mr. Strong generously insisted that his opponent imbibe most of the liquid refreshment. I followed this procedure for the entire match, dashing to the clubhouse bar for a refill in the shaker, then scuttling back to meet the players in alternate holes. Are you seeing where this is going?
I see where this is going.
In spite of my efforts and Mr. Strong's hospitality, Mr. Powers won the match. The guy still lost. So in spite of my Mr. Strong's hospitality, Mr. Powers won the match.
That's crazy.
By the time they had reached the last two holes, they were both spraying their shots all over the course. However, the playoff was most important to me because it gave me the unusual opportunity of seeing inside of the beautiful and exclusive clubhouse of the Country Club of Rochester. No other caddy had been able to wangle that. He'd been working there since he was 8 years old. A decade he was there.
Wow.
And the only time that he saw the inside of this clubhouse,
sneaking drinks to get the opponent drunk in a playoff.
Was to get this guy's opponent drunk.
I love
and it was
that.
such a critical. This is an emergency, Walter. We need you to get this guy drunk so I can win this tournament.
It still didn't.
So
win.
there's like, why are you going to let me go into the clubhouse? And they're like, that's how important this is. We're going to let you, the first caddy ever, to go inside this hallowed halls of the clubhouse to get these drinks. That's like, this is going to be a theme of this Walter Hagen story that we're going to be focusing on, is that like he's like, oh my, he's the club pro.
Yeah.
He's the club professional of this place.
Still didn't get to
and he's friends with everybody there.
Yeah.
You should see the previous 5 pages is him just going on and on about all these different stories about how they're, like I say, the one story where he's going off and as a tournament against Oak Hill Club, and he's playing, they give him a trophy and all this. And all that stuff that he goes through, you get all the way to the point where he goes, and then I got to see inside the clubhouse, take a peek.
Yeah.
That's it. That's where they're at. That's where golf is at this point.
Elitist.
Elite. If you're an elite, you get to hang out in the club. It's the greatest spot in the world. But especially if you're a professional, you're like the working class guy. You're not even allowed to take a peek through the window in that place. That's where we're at right here.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the barrier that he is going to eradicate. That club pros are not just, the rank and file hired help working, living out, sleeping out in the stable, but you're actually going to be like, not, the most revered person at the club.
Yeah.
That's where he's going to take golf. And that's where we're going with this story. So anyways, so that's, that's the main thing I got today. So it's just a great little kind of a ditty, but you can see how big this, this sort of caddying experience was. And if that wasn't clear from my rendition of it, then read his book and tell me that you're reading 25 pages of him
right
telling story after story after story about all the things that he learned from it.
Yeah. Wow, man. It's
so yeah, but you can just see it.
Just the elitist, the exclusivity, and you forget of, it's times now there's private clubs and there's private things, and
but a lot of times when you see, I remember how it was when I was first exposed to Walter Hagen, and you hear, like, you read it, you do like a little overall summary of them, and they talk about, oh, he did so much for professional golf.
Right.
He opened up professional golf to all the professional golfers.
But he was the outsider to begin with.
Exactly. He started out as the outsider. It wasn't like pro golf was like, oh, they just didn't make a ton of money.
Sure.
They were social outcasts.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing. That he took the professional component of golf, and he changed it from being, he was the guy that did it. And he changed it from being from a group of outcast outsiders to being a legitimate, the number one feature of golf, the main thing. So, but it's one thing to see like a little quick summary of it where it goes, Walter Hagen did a ton for professional golf to really make it what it is today, to actually hearing the stories, one after another, because this is not the only one. We are going to hear many stories like this as we proceed, where it is it is time after time after time. They're treated like they are second-class citizens. Like they'll be the feature of a tournament.
Right.
They're all these professionals. Like they'll bring a guy from, one of the guys, I can't wait to talk about this British golfer they bring over.
Where you got to dress behind the shrubs.
Yeah, that's how it is.
Yeah.
They're going to be having these guys that they bring over, like there's magazines about them, and there's this British golfer that his name is Harry Varden, who Walter Hagen is just in love with. Like, he's like, this guy is the pinnacle of the golfing world. And like, he got to actually golf in this tournament with Harry Varden, and he's like copying Harry Varden's swing and doing all these things. And Harry Varden comes over, and he basically the same thing. He's like sleeping in a tent outside all the fans are watching it. He's the centerpiece of the tournament.
Sure.
He's brought in from Britain as like this featured guest.
Yeah.
But even as like a featured guest, he is still an outcast. They're like, oh, but you can't come in the club.
Oh, well, let's not get crazy here.
Let's not get crazy.
You're here to entertain the masses.
Yeah, they're here.
You go sleep in your car.
Well, he's entertaining the aristocrat too.
Yeah.
He's entertaining them too. But you're not to come in the club.
Oh.
This is for golf purists, people that are have bathed in the water, have been baptized into amateurism. Like, we don't want the stink of professionalism in our club. That's what it is.
Wow.
So, that's where it is. And so we're going to be seeing this, this is going to be a recurring theme. And what's interesting is that Hagen is going to be so big that he's actually going to take a stand for it.
Yeah,
that's
we
what it
alluded
is.
to that. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, and it's sort of an idea component of the idea that every people find themselves in there's a billion lives are lived in these in all in the world throughout the course of time, all the way through now. There's all these people in the world and this and that. But you find yourself in a situation to deal with, to sort of to face the obstacle that encumbers you, and this was an obstacle that is going to encounter him specifically. He has the ability to do something about it. And he's not like all the other professional golfers that just go, it's just the way that it is. He's like, no, that's not the way it's gonna be. And he does something about making that change.
I love it. If you want to know what that change is, you got to stick around. You got to follow us. Like, subscribe.
Is that you trying to hint that the show's over?
Well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm hitting too.
All right.
I was just wanted to point that out.
If I didn't jump in with that, you just keep going. And then...
No, I was wrapping it up. But then you're like, hey, and if you want to hear any more,
if you do.
Hey, hold on a second, Jamie. I'm not done.
Segues. I thought you got your last note there.
No, it's my last note. It's my last note. But I was like, hey, hold on a second. I got another couple hours.
Flipping the page, man. Yeah. I got more to do. But yeah, we do have more to do, and we have many more aspects of this story to tell. Walter's story especially will continue on the next episode. So do those podcast things in the podcast places.
Like and share, subscribe. Our numbers are starting to grow a little bit.
Tell friends.
Let's keep the momentum going, folks. Tell one person about it. Share it. Tell everybody, give it the thumbs up, give it a comment, all that stuff. Every single little engagement really helps us build the show. And
it does.
It might seem like a small little thing, but we appreciate everyone. We're like, we hang on the words of every comment. We're like, hey, we look at that person said thank you. They had an exclamation point. They had two exclamation points. That means they really liked it.
Chris liked my cliffhanger.
Oh, nice.
Continuing next time.
Yeah.
It's what
do they call it? They call like the trailer out or whatever.
Yeah, the cliffhanger. Yeah. But yeah, thanks to Chris, Holly, for leaving that comment.
We appreciate it. Like I say, all engagements. And her comment was really cool.
That was moving. It was,
and it's nice to touch people. To reach people that are, that are, have things going on that are attached to this project.
Yeah, I know. That's probably like the fourth or fifth relative. Of someone attached to the story that's commented. I would like to do an episode where we just kind of get all those people on the phone and just find out how they're connected.
Well, when I was doing art shows all over the place, I was meeting family members from these teams. Seriously, I'm friends with some of these people on like Facebook and stuff now. Like, it was crazy. It's interesting how people find this story that are like related to people or have some have a connection to the story in some way. And it's just interesting. And again, yeah, I'm glad it's cool that Holly reached out like that. I was glad to hear from that.
Yep. So, all right. So, Detroit City of Champions.com is the website. There's a link tree connected in there. And if you're down in the show notes, there's a link tree. So you find us wherever you listen, Facebook.
Any YouTube or podcasting thing, wherever. Type in Detroit City of Champions. I don't think there's too many of those up.
You'll find us. So appreciate it.
Check me out if you're in the Detroit area. Come check me out it's call Inspire Marketplace at 12 Oaks Mall.
There you go.
It's a Michigan art store there, and then there's also a Partridge Creek. There's it's same thing, Inspire Marketplace at Partridge Creek. I'm there 2 days a week. The Inspire at 12 Oaks. I'm there 5 days a week. So I work. By that math, 7 days a week. So I'm there at the two stores, one of those 2 days, always getting stuff ready to go for the next show.
All right. So we'll see you next time on Detroit, the City of Champions.